Today's lesson is 8-3 and 4. Our objectives for today are to factor quadratic trinomials in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. It's a trinomial because there are three terms here, 1, 2, and 3. Alright, here's your first problem. Go ahead and write it down. It's 2x squared plus 5x plus 3. Again, we looked at polynomials with 4 terms yesterday and we factored by grouping. Today it's 3 terms. But we're going to take these 3 terms and break them into 4 terms, and it's going to look exactly like what we did yesterday. So to do that, we're going to take our first and our third, or our first and our last terms here, the 2 and the 3, and we're going to multiply those together. So we're going to say 2 times 3, and we're going to get 6. Okay. Then I'm going to look at my factor sheet at 6, because that's what I get when I multiply the first and the last one together. And I get 6, so I'm going to look at my factors of 6. I have 1 and 6, and I have 2 and 3, and I'm going to say, which of those added together will give me 5? Well, 1 plus 6 will give me 7, and 2 plus 3 will give me 5. So 2 and 3 add to the 5, and I'm looking for the 5 in the middle. I need two numbers that multiply to this 6 and add to the middle number 5. So 2 and 3 do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 5x and I'm going to split it up. Instead of calling it 5x, I'm going to say 2x plus 3x. Because 2 times 3 gives me the 6 here. 2 plus 3 gives me the 5 in the middle. Then I'm going to bring down my first and last terms. And now it looks exactly like what we did yesterday. If I cover this part up, we factored something just like this yesterday with factor by grouping, and that's exactly what we're going to do again. We're going to group these first 2 terms together, and we're going to take out the GCF. I have 2x squared and a 2x, so they have a GCF of 2. They also share an x in common. So I'm going to say 2 divided by 2 is 1. Or 2 times 1 is 2. I had 2 x's here and I took 1 out, so I have 1x left. So 2x times 1x is 2x squared. Then here, the 2x, I'm going to say 2 divided by 2 is 1. I had an x and I took an x out, so I don't have any x's left. And 2x times 1 is the 2x right here. Then I'm going to group the last 2 terms together. I have 3x plus 3. And the GCF of 3x plus 3 is a 3. I'm going to say 3 divided by 3 is 1. Bring down my x because I can't take out an x because that 3 doesn't have 1 and they don't share 1 in common. Plus, and then I'm going to say 3 divided by 3 is 1. And I'm going to close my parentheses. Again, if I multiply this back out, 3 times 1x is 3x, 3 times 1 is 3. And again, just like what happened yesterday, what's in our parentheses is the same. So I'm going to bring that down into one set of my parentheses. Instead of saying 1x plus 1, I'm just going to say x plus 1. And then I'm going to take what's on the outside to make up the other set of parentheses. So I'm going to say 2x. The 3 is positive, so I'm going to say plus 3. So I factored 2x squared plus 5x plus 3 into 2x plus 3 and x plus 1. Now we're going to go ahead and check it just to make sure that we did it correctly. And we're not going to check all of these, but I do want to check just a couple of them. Okay, so I say 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times 1 is 2x. I'm going to come down here. 3 times x is 3x. And 3 times 1 is 3. Then I can put these 2 middle terms together because they're both x's. 2 plus 3 give me 5. Bring down my 2x squared and my 3, and I get 2x squared plus 5x plus 3, which is exactly what I started with. So it checks out. Please make sure that you have all the work and the check written before you move on. All right, number 2 is 3x squared plus 15x plus 12. Now, and I forgot to mention this on the first one, but the first thing we actually need to do here is look for a GCF of all three. Okay, so if there's a GCF first, we have to pull out that GCF. So if I'm looking here, I have a 3, a 15, and a 12. So if I look at 3, 15, and 12 on my factor sheet, I figure out that they all have a 3 in common. There's a 3 in all three of those lists. So they have a 3 in common. So I've got to pull that GCF of 3 out before I go into my factor by grouping. So I'm going to say 3 times what is 3x squared, x squared. Or 3 divided by 3 is 1 here, and then bring down your x squared. Then I'm going to say plus 15 times 3 is 5, or 3 times 5 is 15. Bring down my x. Plus 12 divided by 3 is 4, or 3 times 4 is 12, however you want to think about that. Okay, I couldn't take out an x because, again, in order to take out a variable, they all have to have one, and here the 12 doesn't have an x. So now, the first day, whenever we factored out a GCF, we got to stop right here. Today, we're going to keep going, and we're going to factor what's left right here. I have x squared plus 5x plus 4. So again, I'm going to do this using my new method where I'm going to break it down into 4 terms and factor by grouping. And I'm actually going to go ahead and put that 1 right there. I'm going to rewrite this down here so I have a little bit more room. So again, I'm going to connect my first and that last right there. And I'm going to say 1 times 4 is 4. So then I'm going to look on my factor sheet at the 4. So I'm looking at the 4, and I'm going to say, how could I break up factors of 4 to add and get that 5 right there? Because I need them to multiply to this 4 and add to whatever that middle term right there is, and right here it's 5. So here 2 plus 2 is 4, and 1 plus 4 is 5. So 1 plus 4 will add to give me that middle term that I need. So I'm going to break 5x up into 1x and 4x, because 1x plus 4x is 5x, and 1 times 4 gives me the 4 that I need right here. So I'm going to bring down my 1x squared and my 4, and again, it doesn't really matter. You could have put your 4x here and your 1x there. It doesn't matter what order those actually go in. It'll work out either way. So again, I'm going to factor by grouping, so I'm going to group these first two together. 1x squared plus 1x, the only thing that they have in common is a 1x. Because 1 and 1 have a 1 in common, they also both have an x. This one has 2, this one has 1, so I can pull out a 1. 1 divided by 1 is 1. And then I had 2 x's and I took 1 out, so I have 1 left. Plus 1 divided by 1 is 1. I had an x, I took an x out. There are no x's left. Then I'm going to group these second two together. And I have 4x plus 4. So if I look at 4 and 4, they have a 4 in common. So I can take out a 4 here. And I say 4 divided by 4 is 1. And then again, I can't take out an x because that 4 doesn't have 1. They have to both have at least 1 in order for me to take them out. So bring down your plus, and 4 divided by 4 is 1. Again, notice just like what happened yesterday, these are the same. So they're going to make up one set of parentheses. So I'm going to say 1x plus 1, or just x plus 1. And then over here, I'm going to say 1x plus 4, or just x plus 4. Now, there's something important here. Remember up here, I took out that 3x. That was my GCF to begin with. I have to remember to bring that down in my final answer because that is part of my final answer here. So my answer is 3 parentheses x plus 4 parentheses x plus 1. Again, I'm just going to rewrite that without the 1's in front of the x's. So this right here is my final answer. I'm going to come over here and check, and this will be the last one that we actually check on the video. Just for time's sake. All right, for this one, I'm going to need to multiply these two first, and then I'll deal with that 3. So I'm going to say x times x is x squared. X times 1 is 1x. 4 times x is 4x. And 4 times 1 is 4. Bring down that 3. I'm going to put these middle terms together. 1x and 4x is 5x. So I'll put my middle terms together. Now I'm going to multiply everything in here by 3. So I'm going to say 3 times x squared is 3x squared, plus 3 times 5x is 15x, plus 3 times 4 is 12. Notice I get 3x squared plus 15x plus 12, which is exactly what I started with. So that does check out. Please make sure that you have the work and the check written before you move on. Right, here's number 3, 2n squared minus 9n minus 5. Go ahead and write that one down. Again, our first step is to look at our numbers that we have. We have 2, 9, and 5. So if I look at my factor sheet at 2, 9, and 5, I can see that the only thing they have in common is a 1. So I don't have a GCF of all 3 to take out. Also, not all of them have an n, so I can't take an n out either. So I can go ahead with my method of breaking this down into 4 terms and factor by grouping. So again, I'm going to connect my first and my last here. And I'm going to say 2 times negative 5 gives me negative 10. So once I've multiplied that first and that last together and I get negative 10, I'm going to look at 10 on my factor sheet. And since it's a negative 10, I know that one of these numbers here is going to have to be negative in order to add to this middle term that I need. So I'm looking for 2 factors of 10 that will add to this middle term of negative 9. So here on my factor sheet, and I would suggest maybe that you write this out on your paper, we could say negative 1 and 10, 1 and negative 10, negative 2 and 5, or 2 and negative 5. And I just do that because it's a negative 10, and I know that in order to multiply to a negative, one has to be negative and one has to be positive. So if I'm looking at these options for my 10, I can see that 1 and negative 10 will add to a negative 9. Because 1 plus negative 10 will give me a negative 9, so that's what I'm going to split this into. I'm going to say positive 1 and a negative 10 in, and I'm going to bring down my minus 5, my 2n squared, and again, it doesn't matter, I can put my negative 10 here and my 1 in there. It doesn't matter as long as the 10 is negative here. So again, I'm going to break it up just like I did the other day into the first 2. I'm going to look, 2 and 1 only have a 1 in common. And then here I had 2 n's and 1 n, so I can take out an n. And this is the same thing as just taking out an n. 1 n and n are the same thing. So I end up with 2. I had 2 n's. I took 1 out. I have 1 left. So 1 times 2 is 2. N times n is n squared here. Plus 1 n divided by 1 n is 1. Or 1 n times 1 is 1 n. Then over here, since I have a negative 10n and a negative 5, I'm going to take out a negative 5 because 10 and 5 have a 5 in common. And I'm going to take out a negative 5 because that front number right there is a negative. So I'm going to say negative 10 divided by negative 5 is 2. And I'm going to bring down my n. Again, I can't take out an n because the 5 doesn't have one. So negative 5 times 2n is negative 10n. And then negative 5 divided by negative 5 is a positive 1. Or negative 5 times 1 is negative 5. And again, notice I get the exact same thing on the inside of the parentheses. If you don't, you've done something wrong and you need to go back and fix that. So this is going to make up one set of parentheses, 2n plus 1. This is going to make up the other one, and instead of 1n, I'm just going to call it n minus 5. So I factored 2n squared minus 9n minus 5 into n minus 5 and 2n plus 1. This is my final answer. Please make sure you have all of that work down before you move on. Again, we're not going to do any more checks in the video just for time. I go ahead and write down number 4 says x squared plus 4x minus 12. I'm going to put a 1 in front of that x squared if nothing's there. So if I look at 1, 4, and 12 on my factor sheet, they don't have any anything in common that I can go ahead and take out. There's no GCF there. So I can go ahead and start factoring this. So I'm going to connect again my first and my last just like we've been doing, and I'm going to say 1 times negative 12 is negative 12. Now I'm going to look at my factor sheet at 12. And here are my options. Now since this is negative, again I know to multiply to a negative you have to have one positive and one negative. So over here I'm going to write my choices down. I have negative 1 and 12, 1 and negative 12. And all I'm doing is taking my option right here, putting the negative with the first number the first time, and I'm putting the negative with the second number over here. Then here I have 2 and 6. So I'm going to say negative 2 and 6, and 2 and negative 6. Then I have 3 and 4. So I'm going to say negative 3 and 4, 3 and negative 4. So here are my options. I'm looking for which of these will add to that 4x there in the middle that I need. So if I say negative 1 plus 12, I get 11. If I say negative 2 plus 6, I get 4. So right here's the factors that I'm going to need. So again, if I say negative 2 plus 6, I get the 4 that I need. So I'm going to split that up. I'm going to say negative 2x plus 6x. Bring down my 12. Bring down my x squared. And again, you can leave that 1 in front of that x squared right there if you want to. I'm going to group these together. X squared minus 2x. They don't have any numbers in common. However, they do both have an x. So I'm going to pull an x out. This one has 2, that one has 1, so they both have at least 1. I had 2 x's, I took 1 out, so I have 1 x left. Minus, and I'm just going to bring down that 2. I'm going to say there's an x, I pulled an x out, there's no x left, so I'm going to close that parenthesis. When I look at 6 and 12 on my factor sheet, I see that they have a 6 in common, so I'm going to pull a 6 out. And I end up with x, because 6x divided by 6 just leaves me x, or 6 times x is 6x. Minus, and then I'm going to say 12 divided by 6 is 2. And close the parentheses. That was a positive 6 that I pulled out. Notice these are the same. Again, if these are not the same, you've done something wrong and you need to go back. Going to make up one set of parentheses over here, x minus 2. Over here, it's going to be what's on the outside, so x plus 6. So I factored x squared plus 4x minus 12 into x plus 6 and x minus 2. Make sure you have all of that work written before you move on.
All right, so go ahead and get down number 5. You have 2y squared minus 20y plus 32. And the first thing we're going to do is look for a common factor here between 2, 20, and 32. And we do have a common factor on our factor sheet of 2, so we can go ahead and factor out the GCF of 2 here. And we're going to go ahead and do that now. So we're going to pull out this 2, and that's going to leave us with 2 divided by 2 is 1. I'm just going to write that as y squared. Negative 20 divided by 2 is going to give us negative 10. And then 32 divided by 2 is going to give us 16. So now that we have factored out the GCF, we have we have 2 open parentheses, y squared minus 10y plus 16. And now this problem is just like all the other ones we've already worked. So the first thing we're going to do so I will go back and write the 1 here. So we see that we're multiplying. We have 1 times 16, which equals 16, because we have our 1 and our 16 here. So that's what we're going to look at on our factor sheet. And we're looking for factors of positive 16 that will give us negative 10. So we have to be a little bit clever here and realize that when we multiply a negative times a negative, it's going to give us a positive. So because we have to get a negative 10 here, we're going to have to look at all of our terms as if they are negative. So negative 1 plus negative 16 is going to give me negative 17. Negative 2 times negative 8 is going to give me negative 10, and that's what I need right here. So that's what I'm going to look at as my factors. So I have negative 2y and negative 8y. Those are my factors of negative 10 here, or my factors that are going to give me the negative 10 there. I'm going to bring down my 16, bring down my 1y squared. So now I'm going to group here. I have my first two terms, and I can take out a common factor of y here. So I'm going to bring out my y, and that's going to give me, I had two y's, I took one out, so that's going to give me 1y. And then I had 2 divided by 1, negative 2 divided by 1 is going to give me negative 2, and then I took out that y. So there's no y left. So it's y minus 2. Here I have negative 8 and 16. I'm going to say plus a negative 8 for simplicity's sake. And I can pull out an 8 there. I can't pull out a y because the 16 doesn't have a y, and I'm going to go ahead and pull out a negative 8 here, and that's going to give me y, and then 16 divided by negative 8 is going to give me negative 2. So I have y minus 2 and y minus 2 inside my parentheses. Bring that down. And then in my other set of parentheses, I'm going to have y minus 8. Now, don't forget, this 2 up here that I factored out to begin with has to come all the way down here and go in front. So my final answer is 2, open parentheses, y minus 2, y minus 8. Make sure that you have all of that down before you move on. All right, go ahead and get down number 6. It is 3g squared minus 19g plus 28. And we look at our factors of 3, 19, and 28 on our factor sheet, and we do not have any of those. We don't have any common factors, sorry, that we can pull out here. So the first thing we're going to do is look at our first term multiplied by our last term. We have 3 times 28, and that is going to give us 84. So on our factor sheet, we're going to look at the factors of 84, and we're looking for a number that's going to give us, we're looking for two numbers that are going to give us negative 19 when we add them together. So again, negative 19 tells me that my factors, my terms, are going to have to be both of them negative, which is going to multiply together and give me a positive 84, but it's going to give me a negative 19 when I add them together. So my factors of 84, and there are a lot of them. 1 and 84, again, both negative. Negative 2 times negative 42. Negative 3 times negative 28. Negative 4 times negative 21. Negative 6 times negative 14. And negative 7 times negative 12. I'm going to start at the bottom here and start adding together. So 12 plus 7 is going to give me negative 19. That's exactly what I needed. So I'm going to go with negative 7 and negative 12 as my factors. All right, so I've got my negative 7g and my negative 12g. I'm going to bring down my 28, bring down my 3g squared. All right, so now I'm going to look at my groups. 7 and 3 have no common factors. G squared and g have a common factor of g. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out my g here, and it's going to give me 3g plus a negative 7. Again, I got rid of that g. And then here, 12 and 28 have a common factor of 4. I'm going to pull out a negative 4. Say plus a negative 4 because my 12 is negative, so I'm going to factor out a negative 4. And it's going to give me 3g. And I'm trying not to run out of room here. And then negative 28 divided by negative 4 is going to give me negative 7. So plus a negative 7. Okay? Remember, this was just my factors over here. That's not related to the problem anymore. So now in my parentheses, I have the same thing. I have 3g plus negative 7 and 3g plus negative 7. So that will go in my first set of parentheses, 3g plus negative 7. And then in my second set of parentheses, I have g minus 4, so g plus negative 4. And then I can rewrite that to be 3g minus 7 and g minus 4. So that should be your final answer. Make sure that you have all of that down before you move on. And this is actually the last example that we're going to look at on this video. So thank you for watching.